Kenyans told me that they know the state is funding goons and death squads to terrorize their own citizens. Kenyans told me that none of this should be allowed to pass without consequence. The people told me they cannot understand how a police vehicle can be used to ferry goons. They have never seen in history where criminals operate hand in hand with the police. Goons, rogue police officers, and death squads launch attacks on places of worship with impunity. Kenyans saw this violence. Access to healthcare is more than just the SHA registration. We must align and implement 6 building blocks of having effective service delivery, a motivated health workforce at county and national level. The people of Kenya are crying for justice. This is the bare minimum for the United Alternative Government once we get into power on 10th August 2027. The security of our nation remains a great concern for Kenyans. The people told me they cannot understand how a police vehicle can be used to ferry goons. They have never seen in history where criminals operate hand in hand with the police. Kenyans want the goon culture in their country swept out once and for all. On abductions, extrajudicial killings, Kenyans told me that they know the state is funding goons and death squads to terrorize their own citizens. Kenyans told me that none of this should be allowed to pass without consequence. Someone must pay, not just for the crimes done today, but for posterity. We need to do it so that every government that comes after this one understands in its bones that to walk this violent path is to invite a personal reckoning. Just to be clear, when Kenyans said consequences, they didn't just mean for the foot soldiers who pulled the trigger or drove the vehicles. They mean the ones who sat in comfortable offices, coordinated and signed off and declared war on their own people, and they must start trial. They must be prosecuted. They must be convicted. They must serve as an example to all. The people of Kenya are crying for justice. This is the bare minimum for the United Alternative Government once we get into power on 10th August 2027. Kenyans told me that this government, which came to power on the claim that it was God-fearing, has allowed churches to become a target of violence. Goons, rogue police officers, and death squads launch attacks on places of worship with impunity. Kenyans saw this violence in churches in Mweki, Kariobangi, Atodo South, and most recently, ACK Cathedral in Nairobi and Kisumu, and of course, the ACK Wetima Church in Othaya. Kenyans want the church to be off violence from the state. Allow me to begin with the pain points and the frustrations that the people of Kenya reported to me. These are tough issues facing our people. On the education sector in our country, the people told me that they are completely crushed and the gains made over the years have been eroded in a record 3 years. Kenyans told me they need the next administration to bring back better free primary education and secondary education. They want free TVET education and a university financing model that works and is responsive to our people. On agriculture, Kenyans are worried whether agriculture is still the backbone of our economy. They are worried about the rising cost of food and farm inputs, failed agricultural value chains, state-sponsored destruction of our cash crops like tea, coffee, pyrethrum, sugarcane, cotton, among others. Kenyans want the agriculture back. Our cooperative movement in the country have mobilized over 1.2 trillion Kenya shillings in deposits. That is their money, their savings. They do not want this regime to touch even a coin. They do not want their assets to be sold to a select cabal of political businessmen, but to members of the cooperative movement that represent the true face of hard-working, honest Kenyans. On healthcare, Kenyans from across the country confirmed that our nation's healthcare system is broken. Kenyans want drugs in hospitals. Kenyans told me that they need the next administration to sweep clean the healthcare sector in our country. Access to healthcare is more than just the SHA registration. We must align and implement 6 building blocks of having effective service delivery, a motivated health workforce at county and national level, health information systems that are priced fairly, access to essential medicines and technology, robust health financing models, and most importantly, servant leadership and good governance. On the economy, various professional bodies brought in their views on the state of our economy. Their views reflect what every of the 55 million Kenyans feel deep in their pockets. The argument on paying bills as a ruthless mallet on our businesses. Further, the raiding of the payslip has greatly reduced people's earnings, household incomes, and affected purchasing power. Workers won't back their valuable payslip. The people cried about the tax regime. Traders told me that they are experiencing the murkiest tax regime in Kenya's history. They have been taxed into poverty. They requested for a predictable tax framework. They asked for a conducive business environment that spurs investment and trade. The people told me that at independence, we had a great nation. They could see the future for their children and great-grandchildren. Kenyans have told me to revisit the sessional paper number 10 of 1965 and the Kenya Vision 2030. This is not just about revisiting, but use this as a blueprint to give Kenya a vision that transcends political rhetoric. Kenyans feel that if the values of sessional paper number 10 of 1965 on African socialism was implemented to the letter, based on its key themes of African socialism, democratic governance, economic development, resource mobilization, and Africanization, nationalization, social services, and taxation and savings, Kenya would have attained a developed country status in the early 2010. To quote one of the youths who called on me this afternoon, we need to fix the software of this country, and that is where we must begin afresh. Further, Kenyans made another reference to the Kenya Vision 2030. They had pain that the gains made in this Vision 2030 on social, economic, and political pillars are going down the drain. Kenyans have told me that the foundations of the Kenya Vision 2030 on economic growth, social transformation, and political reforms to create a modern, industrialized, democratic, and an inclusive nation must be revisited. With only about 3 years to the year 2030, Kenyans are disappointed and are staring into a bleak future. Express their displeasure that if this vision were implemented fully and targets achieved by the year 2030, our nation would have realized its demographic potential in the early 2040s, and this is where our republic would have transitioned to a mature high-income economy and a high-productivity nation. On the rule of law and fidelity to our Constitution, the country is pained by extrajudicial killings, abductions, and forced disappearances of people. Our young people simply want a system that works for all. The 2024 Gen Z protests and the 7th July 2024 Sabasaba protest remains a painful history in the minds of Kenyans. The people of Kenya who called on me want a public inquest on this matter, and all those involved in the killing of our young people to face the rule of law. Kenyans want to know how many young people we lost, and they want this day to be marked in the calendar of our country. On devolution, many Kenyans, especially Kenyans from the northern Kenya, cannot see or feel the impact of devolution in their counties to the extent they ought to. Kenyans want value for the equitable share their counties have received since 2013. Kenyans want accountability.
Kwa timba kali za Afrika, Durb Radio ndio mpango mzima.